Hello, fantasy sports fans. It is Thursday, which means it is time for MFSN's weekly waiver wire fantasy baseball show. I am your host, Casey Scheingold. As always, I'm joined by the one, the only Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody, I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk waiver wire baseball with you, cowboy. Casey, I know you're a big Yankee fan, and yesterday I was sweating, really nervous that your Yankees were going to lose the game yesterday. Tell us what happened.
Well, it was actually pretty close up until about the fourth or fifth inning. And then, the Yankees got a little warm with the bats and they made us sweat a little bit, but 16-0, I think, is a pretty convincing win. Aaron Judge hit his 30th home run, a grand slam nonetheless. Congrats to you, because I know he's part of your fantasy baseball team. I think Aaron Hicks also hit a grand slam. Giancarlo Stanton hit a home run. Again, congrats to you, another member of that team of yours. So the Yankee bats came alive. The Pittsburgh Pirates didn't really enjoy the last four innings.
And we're almost at halfway point of the season. And, we talked about this. We're not quite there yet. We're close. The All-Star game's coming up in a couple weeks. I'm excited for that, too. I don't really like All-Star games, but I do enjoy the baseball one. The NBA's boring. The NFL's the worst. NHL's scoring fest. They don't play any defense. But baseball's fun to watch. I like watching. I love watching the players face people they usually don't face. But I'm excited about the second half of the season. I think there'll be a lot of great call-ups. You've been doing a great job talking about some of the future players. I think some of these guys are going to be called up, especially for some of the teams that are not competing. These guys will get their chance. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, and people who've watched the show know, I'm a huge fan of the prospects. I try to follow the prospects as much as possible. My recommendation yesterday for Brian Bello didn't work out real well, but I still think long-term he's a good, solid pitcher to roster for your fantasy team. But I love watching these kids come up, see who can compete right away, see who can contribute right away. To me, it can be as, if not more valuable than trades, because you don't have to give up known quantities to acquire them. You just have to be shrewd and savvy on the waiver wire. So It's just you and me again today, Ross. Dan is away with his family. I hope he's enjoying his vacation. He'll be back next week at this time. To review the rules, let's get right into it. We're going to give you the names of some of the players on the waiver wire who we think are worth exploring, worth picking up and adding to your roster. They have to be, for our purposes, they have to be 60% or less owned on Yahoo, on their fantasy baseball website. We're going to go through position by position. We're going to give you a few names you might like. We'll give you a few names you don't like. Tell us which ones you agree with and don't agree with. Please comment. We love interacting with you guys. So, wow. Bob just put that Aaron Judge might be injured. He's marked as day-to-day. I don't know what that is, but I hope as a Yankee fan, it's nothing major. So Ross, why don't we jump into it? Who are your top few pickups for this week?
Is Aaron Judge, is he over 60%? I'm not quite sure.
He's close. If he's not, he's right on the edge. He probably is, though.
Okay, so Casey, what's the hardest position to fill in a fantasy baseball team? What's the hardest position to fill?
Oh, hardest one to fill with competent is either this year it's third base, maybe catcher.
Catcher. So I'm saying I like Eric Cassie of the Detroit Lions, Detroit Tigers. I'm just so into football right now. I can't wait. But Eric Cassie, to me, I thought maybe this guy's a streaker. Maybe this guy's just going to fade away in a week. He hasn't been fading away. He's still hitting like over 350. I mean, he's hitting over 300, this guy, in the past 2 weeks. He's unbelievable. Another guy I like, we talked about him before. He's still under 60%, Alex Kiriloff. I like him a lot. He's been killing the ball in Minnesota. He's getting better and better every week. He's not getting worse. He's getting better. This guy can hit.
Yeah.
He's the real deal. A guy I wanted to ask you about is Matt Carpenter. Great mustache. Doesn't play that much, but when he plays, he really hits home runs. I mean, why does he play? How often does he play?
He's playing probably 60 to 70% of the time. They started him in the outfield for the first time this week. I think last night might have been his first game in the outfield because they're trying to get his bat into the lineup. Matt Carpenter, as everybody knows, was a member of the Cardinals forever and for years was a really good contributor for the Cardinals as a second baseman, a first baseman. He's kind of a boomer bust player. I'm not a huge fan because of you're just as likely to get 3 strikeouts as you are to get a base hit. But right now, he's contributing in a big way for the Yankees, and the Yankees certainly love him. He can't grow the beard that he had, so because of the Yankees grooming rules, I don't know what to call him. So his mustache is luscious.
The Yankees have a strict policy about having facial hair. I know they're one of the teams that do that, and the Reds used to have that when Mark Schott was the owner, but they kind of dismissed it.
And they haven't been competitive since.
And then the other cover boy that you actually are responsible for this, Nick Senzel, University of Tennessee product, the number 2 pick in the draft in 2016. Bunch of injuries, but past 2 weeks, he's been hitting over 400. I mean, he's been killing the ball.
Yeah, and he steals bases too. Like, this guy was the number 2 pick. He was the top prospect in the Reds organization for, I think, 3 years running after he was drafted, 2 or 3 years. He's coming into his age 27 season. Maybe he's figured it out. His hit tool was supposed to be off the chart, so the average should have always been in the 300 to 325 range. I mean, obviously, you don't expect 400 to be sustainable, or 442 is what he's hitting in the last 2 weeks. But this guy could hit coming out of college. He was able to hit in the minors. I think the only thing that slowed him down was injuries. Then the pandemic, all that stuff might have stalled his development. Maybe I think he's figured it out. I don't think he's a streaker at this point. I think he's somebody you want to roster and plug into that second base position going forward. If you lost somebody like Ozzie Albies, look at this guy as a more than competent fill-in.
I agree. So those are my top 4, but when we get more, we'll talk position by position. I'll actually give you more insight and some more players that you should pick up.
Yeah, and the 2 I'll add to your list, and that was certainly a list of guys I have listed near the top of mine, is a pitcher who you've been touting for probably 3 weeks now, and that's Tyler Wells in Baltimore. Yep. I was always hesitant because I thought, you know what, this guy doesn't have the track record. It's still the Baltimore Orioles. But if you look at his last 30 days, he's 30th ranked in Yahoo, in Yahoo overall, with a 1.93 ERA and a 0.89 WHIP in 28 innings. Those 5 wins, by the way, during that time. Those wins, that means it's not a fluke. That means the guy's just pitching really well, because 1 or 2 starts getting lucky, but we're talking 5 starts that in a row that he's killing it. I think he's really up there. And the other guy is somebody, he plays for one of the worst teams in the league, but he's Ramon Loriano in Oakland. The guy was a power speed guy as recently as 2009. Obviously, 2019, we know what happened in 2020 with COVID, and then injuries kind of tore him back. Well, in the last 2 weeks, he's batting .260. He scored 10 runs, 4 home runs, 3 stolen bases. So he's contributing across the board. And this is a guy who I think is likely to be traded to a contender in the coming weeks. My recommendation would be the Philadelphia Phillies, who are without Bryce Harper and have one of the worst outfield defenses. And you put him in a hitter's ballpark with a really good lineup around him, and he could really contribute going forward. What do you think about him, Ross?
He started out very slow. I had him on a couple of my teams and I dropped him. Tons of talent. I mean, Oakland is so high on this kid, and I know they think he can steal 30 bases also. I mean, he is good. It's just he hasn't proven himself to me yet, so I'm not jumping to pick him up so quickly.
Yeah, I think I like him because of the potential if he does get traded. I mean, he's performing well right now, so regardless, he can be a plug in your lineup right now if you need a replacement. But I think with the potential to him getting traded to a good team or a good lineup or a good hitter's park, I think his value will increase, and he's only 32% owned. So somebody I would look at. Kiriloff, he's day-to-day right now. I think he has a sore, what is it? I'll look it up real quick.
Look up Aaron Judge too. I'm just curious to see what Bob's talking about, because I didn't hear anything.
Kiriloff had a tumble running down the first baseline with a collision with the first baseman, so it doesn't sound serious. Aaron Judge, let me look.
Aaron Judge, supposedly he's day-to-day. Hopefully it's just a stomach virus or something.
Let's see. Aaron Judge is out of the lineup due to lower body soreness. You're good. Okay,
so it's a day off. It's fine.
You're good. He's just they could have just called it a day of rest, but they went formal. All right, so let's get to it. Let's go through Let's start in the infield. You mentioned Alex Kiriloff, who can play first base.
I mentioned Eric Cassie as one of the my other catchers. You have him on one of our leagues. Is who I like is Mitch Garber.
I have him listed.
And Mitch has been hitting .257 the past 2 weeks with 3 home runs. I mean, he is very consistent. He just got off the IR. If you need a catcher that's just like an average guy right now, a little above average, I would say, for that catcher position, Mitch could be your guy also. And as we know, the catcher position, it's very hard to find somebody who's going to help your team. It's very hard to find somebody.
Yeah, and look, and you and I talked about this before. The waiver wire felt pretty thin this week.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like there were as many kind of impact players. So catcher was one of those ones that's most impactful. Least impactful. Mitch Garver, I like. Cassie obviously is the top pickup at catcher right now and he did this last year. He had a streak where for like 3 or 4 weeks, he was a top pickup too. So he's a streaky guy. Now's a good time to run with him. And a deep option, if you're looking for somebody to stash, as we know, we talked about my love of prospects, is Francisco Alvarez in the New York Mets. He's been tearing the cover off the ball. Max Scherzer pitched with him, I think, when he was on his rehab, and watched him play and said the guy's for real. They just promoted him to AAA. So now he's one step away from the majors. James McCann isn't exactly running away with the catcher position in New York. And so if the Mets are in it and it becomes a tighter playoff race or they need a bat, Alvarez is somebody that they might look to. He's a top 10 prospect in baseball, power guy, hits for average, so you can consider him if you have room to stash. But other than that, I didn't see any other catchers. MJ Melendez, we like to mention every week just because Just Bob is very upset that we're not being as serious about Aaron Judge's injury because they're saying a day off against the Red Sox, questionable. He's hurt. They're lying. He might be hurt. Who knows? But at least we got the All-Star break coming up in 10 days, and he can get some extent. If he's going to magically pull out of the All-Star game, that's when they'll announce the injury, so he doesn't have to compete in the All-Star game.
I wouldn't want to compete in the All-Star game if I was him either. What's the point?
Bob, I see your Yankee insignia as your kind of avatar. I'm a diehard Yankees fan too. You can see it behind me. But I am not quite jumping off the cliff with Aaron Judge's injury. I do not believe it's anything serious, even if they're lying.
You guys, he's in a contract year. He's not going to be hurt.
They're holding him back so that his numbers are suppressed so they can get him for less money. Maybe it's a conspiracy for Brian Cashman. What?
You know what? He should not compete in the home run hitting contest either. That can screw your hitting up also. That's the worst thing a hitter can do is compete in that contest. Anytime somebody wins it or gets to the finals, they end up having a horrible second half. So I suggest you don't play in that either. You withhold yourself from the home run hitting contest. Let Scott Schwarber do it. Let somebody else. Let some other idiot win it. You don't need the money. You don't need the car. You don't need the fame. You play in New York. You're the MVP so far in the league between me, you, and Bob. Just rest yourself. Get ready for the second half, young man.
Bob, I didn't mean to upset you. I can see this is a really emotional time for you. If you want to talk about it, I'm a therapist. We can make an appointment off air, but now's not the time for that counseling session. I understand you have him on your 6 teams. That means you have a lead because of the numbers he's put up. Just losing him for 2 or 3 games is not going to ruin your season.
He'll miss one day.
Take a breath. He already missed Sunday. He's pointing that out. Okay. Anyway, let's go to first base. First base.
We talked about Alex Kiriloff the past 2 weeks. It's 306, 13 RBIs, Casey Seinfeld. That's almost an RBI every day. The past 2 weeks. Hey, 3 home runs. If you need a first baseman, first base is like it's a bunch of first basemen. There's Christian Walker, who I love. There's Alex Kiriloff. There's Nathaniel Lowe, who's hitting 346 the past 2 weeks with 3 home runs and 9 RBIs. There's a million first basemen. So if you don't have a good first baseman right now, you're an idiot. That's what I got to say.
Well, that was passionate, Ross. I appreciate that. I don't like insulting our audience, but that's fine. The only other one I would add is Harold Ramirez of Tampa Bay. He's been tearing the cover off the ball, 366 average. I didn't see you mention him.
Play different positions. I'm the audience. What else he can play?
And then again, I'm going to mention a prospect. Vinny Pasquantino is up with Kansas City. He's playing every day. He's struggling right now, adjusting to major league life, but the talent is there. If you can absorb kind of some of the hurt for the first few weeks while he adjusts, he could pay off big time down the stretch run. So that's somebody else.
Maybe if it's a redraft league, don't bother. If it's a keeper or maybe a dynasty, of course, pick him up. But I wouldn't pick him up if it was a redraft league. That's not the boss talk. And
look, one of the things we talk about in some of our fantasy baseball strategy videos that you can find offline is identifying your own weaknesses is a good skill to have, and being willing to acknowledge your weakness. If you haven't noticed, I have a weakness for prospects. I like the potential. I like some of that lottery ticket. So I always save the bottom 2 spots to my roster for somebody like that in the hopes that they do achieve it. If not, they don't hurt me because they're never in my starting lineup until they start to produce. But that's just me. All right, second base. We talked about Nick Senzel. Obviously, he's the top pickup right now. Who's your next best second baseman?
Matt Carpenter, we talked about him. He can play second. Luis Urias of Milwaukee. He's my other second baseman. He can play other positions too. He can play the infield. Just look at his availability. He's a utility guy. He's hitting 265 with 3 home runs and 9 RBIs the past 2 weeks. He plays in Milwaukee, a kind of an easy ballpark to hit in. If you need somebody utility that can play second, I think he plays third. Pick him up. But second base, I think is we talked about it. Nick Senzel of the Reds is the number 1 pickup for that position.
Yeah, I have Senzel. I have Nico Horner in Chicago.
I have Nico too. And Nico, you brought his name up. I have him at shortstop, but he's hitting 412 for the.
I know he's an on base. He has a similar profile to Senzel. Not a huge power guy, but kind of that. If you remember when the Angels were really good 10, 15 years ago, they had was it Eckstein? Was that his name?
David Eckstein.
He kind of fits that sort of grinder, get on base, annoy the other team type of player.
Good call.
Luis Urias he qualifies at second and third and short. He's another one. And then Josh Rojas in Arizona doesn't hit for a ton of power, but he's getting on base all the time, scoring a ton of runs, and he qualifies at second, third, short, and outfield. And there is real value to the versatility that provides you.
I agree. I like Rojas too. I have him down at third base. Rojas is he had a game this year where he had 3 home runs in 1 game.
Yeah, I owned him for a while last year. He went through a hot streak where he was hitting for power and actually stealing some bags. Bob just pointed out, A, he loves you. So you should know that, Ross. He's a big fan. And B, I guess Jeremy Pena is hurt again in Houston.
Oh, again.
Yeah.
Pena, I love Pena. Great shortstop, plays in Houston. Just he can't stay healthy. I don't know what's wrong with him.
He has the boxer's equivalent of a glass jaw or whatever they call it.
But he's so much talent. And, when he's healthy, make sure you pick him up. He's one of the top 10 shortstops I have playing right now.
All right. Give me 2 names at shortstop for right now off the waiver wire.
Elvis is in the building. Have you seen the new Elvis movie?
No, I have not.
So Elvis and Denris of Oakland. And
Andrews. Yep.
He's hitting 293, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs for the past 2 weeks. Elvis has been playing really well for the Oakland A's. And he's like 99% of the leagues, like he's available in. I mean, it's unbelievable. No one has this guy. And then you mentioned him, Nico Horner of the Cubs. He won't hit home runs for you, but if you need average, he's hitting 412 the past 2 weeks. So those are my 2 big shortstop pickups for the week.
Okay. I like it. Yeah, shortstop. We mentioned some players who qualify at both. Nico Horner plays shortstop. We mentioned him. Luis Urias plays at shortstop. Jorge Mateo is not hitting for a great average right now, but the guy is fun to watch, scores a lot of runs, is really aggressive on the base pass. So if you can absorb the periods where he doesn't really produce in the average department, you're going to get runs, home runs, and stolen bases. I think that is a worthwhile investment. You know who I wanted to talk to you about? He's not available, by the way, but
Okay.
Have you seen what Kyle Schwarber's been doing for the last 3 weeks?
What's he up to, 24 home runs now? I mean,
I think he's hit 4 home runs in the last 2 games. I think he's
he's just on fire. And I don't know if you watched, he played
27 home runs he's up to.
He played in a game over the weekend where they had him mic'd up in the outfield and they had a microphone and they were interviewing him during the game. Like he was playing in the outfield and he was talking about the pitcher, like showing his signs. It was really good. It was really kind of fun to watch and really insightful, but he's been on fire. I mean, he's
the number 1 player in fantasy in the last month.
He's been killing it. I mean, it's him in the National League and Judge in the American League. Those are the 2 that are killing the ball, hitting home runs. I wouldn't want to do a drug test on him because I'm afraid what happened. But the guy is just a beast. I mean,
he's country strong. I don't know if the drug test would matter.
His strikeout rate's a lot lower this year compared to last year too. So
yeah,
Schwarber to me, he's the real deal. If you play those daily games, people bet those things. Schwarber's a must pick. Goldschmidt's a must pick. Judge is a must pick. I mean, all these guys are.
He had 1 month last year for the Nationals where he hit like 17 or 16 home runs in the month.
We talked about it. Remember the big streak he went on?
It was crazy.
Talked about it. It was crazy.
But I think he's the reason, by the way, why the Phillies, without Bryce Harper, are still thinking about being buyers at the deadline. Because if he can keep them in it until Harper comes back, and you've added pieces once Harper comes back, they can get a wild card easy. And I wouldn't want to face Nola, Wheeler in a wild card.
The Phillies, I mentioned them beginning of the season. I like their roster. I think they're a strong team. I like them a lot, and their defense is pretty good. But I had Goldschmidt as the MVP going in the All-Star break. Now Schwarber is like, I might have to pick him now. I don't know. We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah.
Because Paul Goldschmidt is hitting like 340 and has a bunch of home runs. I mean,
Goldschmidt has been insane.
I mean, he's been and he's old.
Yeah.
I mean, for baseball, he's old. And
he's been
this
crazy.
Guy is just, everybody written him off. I mean, in fantasy, he was like a 4th or 5th round pick.
Yeah, he's producing like 2014 Arizona Diamondback.
Unbelievable numbers. Right? So
it's
about
amazing.
Mid-season awards, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, MVPs.
We'll address that next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next week. But Schwarber and Goldschmidt are my 2 front runners right now in the National League. Yes.
All right, let's move to third base. Do you have anybody?
We talk about this guy every week. I'll mention him again. Here we go. Guess who it is? He plays for the St. Louis Cardinals. Juan Yepez.
Yep.
For some reason, he can't get over the 60% hump. He has 5 home runs, 7 RBIs in the past 2 weeks. He's been doing great. Somebody that is like only owned in 2% of the leagues, and has no power. But no one knows who this guy is. But he gets his bats, and he plays a lot, is Yadi Diaz of the Tampa Bay.
Yeah, he's a doubles machine.
I mean, this guy, he's hitting 435. The past 435, Casey, shot full. Unbelievable the past 2 weeks. And no one knows who this guy is, and he's not even owned in like 98% of the leagues. It's unbelievable. And of course, the other guy I have is Josh Rojas. We talked about him already.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's amazing. You look at some of these stats and some of these players and how they're not owned. I mean, Yadi Diaz, he's hitting like double the league average. I mean, that's how good this guy is still. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's killing it. I agree with you on him. And, there's not a lot to add. The only one I'm going to add is my prospect that I've been saying for 3 weeks now, and that's Miguel Vargas of the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're giving him outfield at bats. I mean, they just put somebody new on the DL. Who was it? Chris Taylor just went on the DL or IL. So there's room for him. He's crushing the ball. I think
it's all about if you bring somebody up, you know the deal. That means that it's one less year that you can.
Oh, I know. But do you really think the Dodgers worry about that? Like, honestly, they have more money than God. But
I think they want to make sure these guys can play every
I think at this point, I'm going to mention him every week just so I can say I was right the week he gets called up. Because I'm 0 for 3, I think, with this guy. But one of these times, it's kind of like the lottery.
They're bringing this guy up. I mean,
you only have to win once.
I live in LA, and there's a lot of good press on this kid. And yes, you're 100% right. And I'll talk about Hunter Dozier when Dan gets back, because anytime I bring up Hunter's name or Ian Hatt's name, he goes crazy. It's my favorite thing.
He rolls his eyes. Yeah, let's go to the outfield. Give me a couple names in the outfield.
So we talked about Nick Senzel, Brandon Nemo of the Mets. I mean, this guy, he plays in New York, and no one talks about him. 326 the past 2 weeks, 3 home runs. He's been a solid guy. I mean, if you need an outfielder that's going to be solid for you and plays on a great team, Brandon Nimmo could be your guy. And another guy that we talked about is Jarren Duran of the Boston Red Sox. He steals, he hits for ab. He's hitting 350 the past 2 weeks, 3 stolen bases. I mean, this guy is a rookie. I like this kid. He's not related to Roberto Duran, so don't get mixed up. But I like this guy a lot. And another guy that I like, I know he actually had the big sombrero yesterday. He had 4 strikeouts in one game, but I still like him. He plays for the Phillies. Derek Hall. Derek Hall was brought up about 2 weeks ago. He's been killing the ball until yesterday. He just had a bad game. He'll be back. But Derek Hall, the Phillies, could be a really good pickup for you. If you have room in your roster, go for it. Pick him up now.
Yep. I mentioned Ramon Loriano. I still think he's a good pickup. I think Tommy Pham is playing well enough to be considered a pickup. I mean, he's only batting 240, but he's got a couple home runs and a couple steals. He's knocking in runs at least one every other game. So those are solid numbers.
Just don't have him on your fantasy football team because.
Well, don't have him in your fantasy football league.
Yeah, just don't have him in your fantasy football league.
You can have him on your fantasy baseball team, but.
Because I don't think he understands how the IL position works. I don't think he understands or grasps the whole idea behind it.
I'm not sure.
And he was wrong. I'm a Reds fan, and Tommy Pham was wrong. Jock Peterson did nothing wrong in that. If he just played, he played the rules. He should slap Mike. He should slap Trout. That's the one you slap. He's the commissioner. That's the one you slap.
Could you imagine how much trouble you get in for slapping Mike Trout versus Jock Peterson?
First of all, Trout is twice the size as Jock. Trout's built like a linebacker.
Oh, I know.
So I don't think Tommy Pham's going to hit Mike. If he does, Trout will clock him. I mean, Trout's huge, a lot bigger than Jock Peterson.
The other guy who's been consistently playing well for the past month or so is David Peralta in Arizona.
Love him.
Last 2 weeks, 355, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs.
He does this. They go, woo, woo. He does the whole train thing when he gets a hit. It's great. I love Peralta. He doesn't play every day, so if you're playing him in fantasy, just make sure he's starting that day. That's the only thing I want to add. But I love Peralta.
My favorite home run trot or home run celebration was Edwin Encarnacion's The Parrot, when he would put his arm up like he was holding the parrot the whole way he was going around the bases. That's still my favorite of all time.
Mine's still, I'm not even a Dodger fan, and Kurt Gibson going like this with the arm when he hits the home run.
Well, that was the one iconic home run. I don't think he did that every time. Every time Edwin Encarnacion hits a home run, he was carrying a parrot. It was great. All right, let's move to the mound. Give me your top 2 starters to pick up.
Chris Flexen of the Seattle Mariners. It's like this guy, the past 2 weeks, he's 3-0, Casey Scheinfeld, ERA of 3.06, and 14 Ks in 17 innings. I mean, for me, he's like an average pitcher, but for the past 2 weeks, he's 3-0, which is really, really good in 2 weeks. So I like Chris a lot. Seattle's a team that everybody predicted would be in first place. They're not in first place, but playing a lot better. Tyler Wells, the guy I mentioned last week, 2-0 this week, 1.64 ERA. And Josiah Gray, who used to play for the Dodgers, actually.
Josiah Gray, yeah, he's figured it out, hasn't he?
18 innings, 26 strikeouts. I think it's like 1-1, but this guy loves to get strikeouts. If that's a category in your fantasy league, pick up Gray right now because he strikes out people and he every game he pitches in, he's always in. I mean, he never gets blown out. He's always like in the mix.
Yeah. Spencer Watkins is pitching right now really well for Baltimore. I don't know how much I trust him because he's an Oriole pitcher I'd never heard of. But
Baltimore's record, I mean, I think they have more wins right now than they had all season.
Oh, yeah, they're playing well. And they're a team I'm really high on. Like, they're going to be a 2024 playoff team, right?
Wow.
Like,
hold on, I'm writing this down. Casey Scheinfeld, 2024.
I mean, you think about it, they're going to have, with the young players they have up now, they have Grayson Rodriguez, they have Gunnar, I'm blanking on his name, the infielder coming up, who's another hitter. They're going to be – they are building the right way, it feels like finally, that 8-year rebuild is finally bearing fruit. So, but Spencer Watkins is pitching well. And so I'm still high on John Gray. I mean, The past month, he's been a great pitcher. The past 2 weeks, 12 innings, 12 and 2/3, a win, 15 Ks, 2.84 ERA, and a 1.11 whip. He's kind of figured it out, I think, down there in Texas. And he's still only 58% owned, so you can do that. And I mentioned Brian Bello last week. I mentioned him in my short this week. He struggled 4 innings, 4 earned runs yesterday against Tampa Bay. I think he was nervous. I'm going to give him a pass on that. We'll see what his next start is. But my prospect to mention is one I've mentioned before for this week, and that's Max Meyer in Miami.
Oscar Meyer, yes.
He's still just dealing down in the minors.
Yes.
And there's no reason Miami should not call him up to see what he has. He's past it's past the Super 2 status. So
Miami has some really good starters. I hope they keep their team. I hope they don't trade some of their players. I mean, my Cy Young right now is a Miami Marlin. You know, that's how good they are in pitching.
Yeah.
And now Chris Sale pitched last night for the minor league team in Boston. I think a single A team he pitched, and he looked really good.
But he had 5 walks in 3 innings.
He had 5 walks. But my friend was at the game. He sent me some pictures. But
the stuff is electric. Yeah.
I mean, he was throwing really, really hard.
So Chris Atwater has a question for us. Our buddy Chris, Professor Atwater.
We had to drag him out because
he wants to know. He wants to know where the Pirates are going to trade David Bednar, their stud reliever, at the trade deadline. I have a thought. I don't know if it's right.
I mean, the team I think they'll probably trade him to. Is that the question?
Yeah.
I think either the Mets or maybe the Phillies. I think he'll go to the National League. He'll stay in the National League. I don't see him going to the American League. The Dodgers may want to pick up another reliever, which they always do for some reason, just another setup guy or whatever happens. So, yeah, he'll go to a big market team. I'm not quite sure. Either New York or LA. That's my prediction.
I like the LA idea. I actually like Atlanta, especially with Kenley Jansen's heart issue. They might be looking to replace him because they think they have a team built for a World Series run. I like the Phillies because their bullpen is always a mess, although Sir Anthony Dominguez has been pitching pretty well in that closer role the last few weeks. I like the Red Sox. I mean, Tanner Houck is not exactly a stud closer. And if they're in the wild card with their lineup, if they get their pitching healthy again, you know, they might be looking for that Craig Kimbrell closer that they had so many years ago. I think they're a sneaky team too.
I don't think the Red Sox will be in the playoffs. I think it's going to be Toronto and New York in that division. That's my prediction. We'll see if I'm right or wrong.
Just Bob thinks the Pirates would be stupid to trade him because how good he is.
The Pirates do it every year. They trade anybody.
They always trade their best player. Now they have a lot of control left with him. But if they can get a good haul and they can get a starting pitcher out of it,
they can get draft picks. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I agree that
we'll talk about this too, Case. Write that down. I want to talk about some of the players, new places, new faces, where they're going to play in the second half. The Reds are another team that are going to sell. Castillo's going to be gone. I think Tommy Pham's going to be gone. I guarantee Brandon Drury's going to be gone. The Reds have a lot of guys that are going to dump, and it's going to be a feeding fest with some of these teams. And
so, are the Castellinis the worst owners in sports?
Yeah, I'm trying to get a group together to buy the team from them. Actually.
All right. Well, let me know.
We'll talk off air because I
can contribute $20. I don't know how much that would give me. All right,
Casey Scheinfeld, you're in.
Give me a couple relievers before we.
So Paul Sewald,
we
talk about him. 5 saves the past 2 weeks. Casey's.
I know.
5 saves. Paul Sewald. Seattle Mariner, 1.50 ERA. Take that.
Yeah.
Lou Trevino for the Oakland. He's been gaining the save opportunities because their other closers hurt. Trevino, 1.80 ERA, 4 saves in 2 weeks. And Will Smith, not the guy that slapped Chris Rock, not the catcher for the Dodgers, but the relief pitcher for the Atlanta Braves. He's pitching really well the whole season. His ERA is 1.64 and 3 saves the past 2 weeks. So Will Smith, everybody counts him out every year. I know he's older. I know he's this. Doesn't matter. This guy's coming through. He's doing a lot of – he just doesn't throw heat anymore. He has a lot of breaking stuff that looks great. And the Braves, they are the defending world champions, so it's not a bad pickup. So those are my 3 save guys. If you need saves, I just gave you 3 good save guys that will get you some saves in the next couple of weeks.
Yep, I agree with those. I think Tanner Scott could also, I don't know if you said him or not, in in Miami the last 2 weeks. He's got 2 wins and 4 saves to go along with 8 strikeouts. ERA is up at 3, so he's given up a couple runs in there, but those are pretty good numbers. Andres Munoz, I haven't really even heard of this guy in Seattle, the relief pitcher. The last 2 weeks, 7 2/3 innings, 14 strikeouts, a 0 ERA, a .65 whip. Somebody who can give you, if you're in one of those leagues that caps innings, that you can have a pitcher pitch, he can get you a lot of strikeouts in a few innings. That's something valuable. And also, similarly, is Brooks Rayleigh there down in Tampa Bay. 5 innings pitched, 1 save, 9 strikeouts, a 0 ERA.
And remember, some of these guys you're mentioning, like Tanner Scott, he's not going to be a Marlin in 3 weeks. He's going to be traded. Rainey's going to be traded. And that's where we have to come in and tell you guys, okay, pick up this player because he's going to be the closer now for the Miami Marlins. Or the same thing with Pittsburgh, or the same thing with Washington, whoever it is. A lot of these guys are going to be gone, and there's going to be somebody else that has to fill in.
All right, we got one more question before we go, and I'm going to ask you to answer it because it's aimed at one of the players you have in our keeper league. Christopher Atwater wants to know, John Schreiber is really nice, but doesn't get a lot of save opportunities. What do you think of a guy like that?
Well, the manager for Boston actually said that he's going to give Schreiber the ball now when it's time to get saves. He throws really hard, really, really hard, and he has all the physical attributes for a closer. I think with him, it's more mental, and the more opportunities he gets, the more comfortable he gets, the more saves he'll get. So I like Schreiber for Boston. It's been bad luck in Boston for closers. I mean, anytime somebody gets the job, they fail. When there's a set guy, they look great. As soon as they get in there,
I know it's been a bugaboo for them.
And I hate to say it, but the closer role, you got to have really smart, your head on straight, because if you're not thinking straight, you're going to fail. And that position, I would say, is like 50% mental, 50% physical closing.
Yeah.
Very tough mentally. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't had a reliable closer since, what was his name? Papelbon obviously was good for a while in his day.
Papelbon was an unbelievable closer. I'm not a Boston fan, but they've had some really good closers in the past.
But it's been a while. It seems like they're cursed.
Dennis Eckersley they had as a closer at one time. I mean, that's a long time ago. But I mean, the past 2 years they've been getting destroyed closer wise. It's been really ugly to watch.
Yeah,
and fans have been really upset about it, especially this year. It's been horrible.
I mean, Koji Uehara was probably the last one they had back in, what was that, 2000, maybe 14, 15, who was a really good closer for them. So I don't see why you're not giving Schreiber the shot to see if he can hold the job down. But I see them looking for a reliever at the trade deadline and maybe going for one of the
how many games? I'm just curious. I don't follow the AL East like you do, but how many games out is Boston? I thought they're
double digits out at this point.
Yeah, so
they went on a.
Why do you think they're going to be like buying players for a playoff run?
Because there's 3 wild card spots, and they're
over 500.
Oh yeah, even though they're 10 or 12 games back, they're still. Okay. I think right now the Yankees, Red Sox, Rays, and maybe the Blue Jays would all get in if the playoffs started this week. Although the Blue Jays have lost a few games in the last week, they've played pretty poorly, so maybe that they fell out. But the Red Sox and Rays are both in wild card position right now, so it makes sense.
And I guess so. Next week we'll talk about. We'll talk about awards, midterm awards on certain categories. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what players we think will go to different teams. We'll have a whole different bunch of stuff to talk about next week.
Yeah, we'll going into the All-Star break. It's fun to talk about the first half and do kind of a review of the first half. So we'll do it. We'll have Dan back, so it'll be a little more adversarial. I think we'll try to throw out some controversial names just to get Ross's temper flared, because I love it when he gets angry.
No, that's all I have to say to Dan Ratner, Ian Happ, and Hunter Dozier, and then all of a sudden it's like it's like you have him hypnotized to like something happens to his brain when you see those words.
And I'll just tell I'll say it now. Aaron Judge is not the AL MVP. That'll get you riled up for a week.
You're out of your mind. He's not.
There you go.
Of course he's the AL MVP. You got to be on drugs not to think that. Who's your AL MVP? Then we'll go. Who is it?
Jose Ramirez. I told you that.
Plays in Cleveland, small market. Doesn't have the home runs like Judge have.
Doesn't have the home runs, but a better batting average, more RBIs, more runs scored. Which is more important?
No one can. Batting average and home runs.
I know.
What do chicks dig? They jig the long ball, okay?
Okay, you're Tom Glavine.
That's exactly.
That makes me Greg Maddux, right? All right. Well, guys, thanks again for tuning in. It was a lot of fun, Ross. I appreciate everything. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. Like this video if you enjoyed what you're hearing. Ring the bell for notifications. Leave your comments below. We love hearing from you. Just Bob and Christopher Atwater, thank you for your support. I hope, Just Bob's a Yankees fan. Christopher Atwater's a Red Sox fan. I'm rooting with Just Bob tonight, Christopher. I'm sorry. I got to go with my loyalty. But Yankees, Red Sox, they start in about 2 hours. Tune in. Have a good night, everybody.